The first thing is, as we talked about before, frame rate is so important. Okay, frame rate is how many frames per second is your device taking a picture, right? So if you've ever done the flip book that and you draw on the corner and you flip it and it looks like there's movement, film's the same way. It just pictures stacked on top of each other in a way. So it's important that you use the right frame rate. And I wanted to show you on a phone. I have an iPhone SE, which is not um, one of the newer ones. I think some of you have some newer ones, but I wanted to show you on here, and then I'll show you where some resources are. I emailed them already, and we have a few people still not doing them, but I want to show you a few things. The first thing is make sure you shoot your footage in 24 frames per second. That's going to give you a little motion blur so it looks cinematic. A film looks like a film because it's shot in 24 frames per second. And, a sporting event or the news looks different because it's a different frame rate. So on my phone, hopefully you can see that up here in this corner, you'll see HD 30. Okay, and that's telling me the frame rates, and it's going to shoot in high definition, which is 16 by 9. Remember, we learned about aspect ratios? So if I punch it, now it's at 60. So the more pictures there are, the higher that number is, the more crisp and clean it's going to look. But it's not going to look like a film. It's going to look like um, anything else but a film, a commercial or something like that. It's just not going to have that same look. So on my phone, I have to hit HD, and I have to go into 4K, which is bigger than 16 by 9. But see how I'm at 24 frames per second. That's where you want to be. You can always export it down. You can kind of down convert it to 16 by 9. So I want to show you in Premiere a few things. Don't worry if you're not using Premiere. Um, I just want I want you to know what to look for when you're exporting, so you can do this, because I'm going to require that your film, your final film, be 24 frames per second and 16 by 9 or 1080p. So let's take a look in Premiere and the resources that I provided for you. Okay, so over here on the modules, down at the bottom are resources, camera and export settings. And I emailed this to you earlier. I actually just copied and pasted the email. 24 frames per second, 16 by 9 aspect ratio. That's that 1920 by 1080p. You'll probably see it just as 1080p. These videos will help you get the setting. You might have to look in terms of what kind of camera you're using or what kind of phone to find the specifics, but you need to figure out how to get into both of those right there, okay? And I'll show you why. Okay, so I am over here in Premiere, and one thing I want to do, if you are using Premiere, which I recommend, but if not, these are things, whatever you're using, you need to look for. So here are my sequence settings. I can see here's my frames per second, and it's close to 24. There's a little bit of a drop off just based on what they found, kind of how cameras works, and some how they work in Asia and Europe is slightly different than here. So if there's this little loss in frame, it's okay. It rounds up to 24. I don't want to get bogged down. And you can see my frame size is 16 by 9, right? It's 1920 by 1080. And I can change it down here. So whatever platform you're using, you have to make sure, one, that you shot in 24 frames per second, and that your settings are this, and definitely your export, which it looks like. Well, let's just look at some examples, and you can see. All right, so I have imported this video, "A Good Day" by Jacob, and you can see it fits in the frame, right? Because I'm 16 by 9. There's no dead space. There's no black. There's nothing. Not only that, it has a very filmic. It's got that motion blur. It's got a little bit of a filmic go to it, and I can come over here. I can check the info, and I can see right here that he shot in 24 frames per second, and that was in the correct aspect ratio. Okay, so that's why it's going to have a little bit of a filmic look. That's hard to say, but you just kind of know. When you've been in the industry for 20 years, you just kind of know. All right, and you just kind of feel It's not crisp. I see that little bit of motion blur. All right. So let's bring this one in really quick. All right. So why are we getting all this black in here, right? I can click on it and I can see the video is 24 frames per second. Okay, good. But we have the a different aspect ratio size. So if you don't shoot in the correct, maybe your phone won't do it or whatever device that you have. If you use Premiere, you can scale to frame size. So then it's least, that in some ways is better than that, right? If we're going to go from that, we want it to be consistent. So you can set to frame size or scale to frame size, and there you go. All right. So now let's look at the another one. When I bring this one in, come with me, come in, right there. All right. Now, this one's doing the exact opposite. It's too close because if I look at it, correct frame rate, but this was shot in 4K. So it's going to be too big, right? It's too much information. It's the exact opposite of what this one, whereas this one was too small, this one is too big. So same thing, scale to frame size, and there we go. And the kind of the way it works out, 4K is going to give you these pillar boxes. Let me see if I can. You can kind of play with it. So it had to pull it down. You could see at 50% there to get it to fit. So if you do shoot and you want to get it in there, you can scale it to where things are good. But of course, you're kind of chopping off the a little bit of the top when you push in, but it gets rid of the pillar boxes. Okay, so main points. Make sure that you are checking your frame rate before you shoot. Make sure your sequence settings, however you're editing it, make sure it's accepting it as 24 frames a second, not 30. See if it gives me here. Well, it doesn't even matter on that one, but make sure it's, oh, here it is. Yeah, so see, there's a ton of them that it can be in. You want to always aim for this one here. I wouldn't do straight 24, but it depends on what you're doing. Then when you go to export, you're just going to have to look for this based on whatever device you're using. If you're not on the right thing, if you don't have that lit up, it's not going to export. Okay, so even on here, I'm scrolling down, I'm making sure I can see 24 is the frame rate, and I can see 1920 by 1080. That's how it's going to export. So you just need to look at that if you're on your phone or whatever. Just look and see, how is this exporting? It's going to tell you somewhere. You're going to have to do a little research based on your own equipment, how to do it. But I will require 100%. It needs to be 24 frames, and it needs to be 1920 by 1080. Okay? And I will export your videos, and I will send them to you. Hope you're all having a good day, and we will, good luck on this module. Let me know if you have any questions.